Deferred action for childhood arrivals found to be unlawful by a federal judge. This after former President Donald Trump's attempts to find the law. It's not really a law. It was an edict by former President Barack Obama. But in 2017, attempts by the Trump administration to find DACA illegal was thwarted by the courts. But yesterday, you have a federal judge essentially saying that DACA is unlawful. So what's the impact on one law in particular here in Illinois when it comes to allowing for non-citizens in the states to become law enforcement officers? I guess we'll have to determine that. But again, a federal judge in Texas yesterday declaring that the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program is illegal. The judge wrote that the remaining provisions of the original injunction are to remain in place and are to be applicable to final rule deferred action of childhood arrivals. Nearly 150 illegal immigrants have crossed the border. According to federal government, you've got 800,000 individuals believed to be recipients of DACA. You've got millions who've crossed the border just in the past couple of years. Tent cities possibly popping up in Chicago. The Border Patrol releasing an email to authorities that was leaked out of Florida, essentially saying that they plan to mass release illegal border crossers from crowded facilities. So while you've got all of those numbers from the those on the terrorist watch list crossing the border illegally to those who have been here, taken here as children, and the constant flow of migrants crossing the border illegally, this all is clearly something I think is for good reason top of mind for a lot of people. As you see the numbers and the headlines stack up. So the federal judge in Texas essentially saying that DACA is illegal. It's expected this is going to go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And it should go to the U.S. Supreme Court because, the question is, can the executive, as the president, make immigration law just by issuing an executive order or some kind of policy that Obama did with the deferred action of childhood arrivals. Now, again, how does this impact an Illinois law that Governor J.B. Pritzker signed? I heard about this, a couple of months ago. We talked about it when it was making its way through the State House, and then the governor quietly signed it, if you recall, along with, I think it was either when he signed 150 bills on a Friday afternoon or it was 100 bills he signed on a Friday afternoon. I can't recall which tranche of bills he signed it, but he didn't have like a big signing ceremony. However, he was asked about it later on. And here's what the governor had to say about that law that allows for non-citizens to become police officers in the state of Illinois. Here's Governor J.B. Pritzker on that.
That's wrong. That's false. Yeah, I appreciate you asking the question because, as usual, the far right is proposing or putting out their false information. They're saying that we're allowing illegal immigrants is the word that they would use. Undocumented immigrants are not allowed to become police officers in the state of Illinois still. What we have allowed is legal permanent residents and DACA recipients now to become police officers. So we have the ability for people who are legally in this country and, again, permanent residents or DACA recipients now to apply for jobs as police officers. But I am tired of the right wing twisting these things. They put it out on Facebook. They tell lies. They attack based upon those lies. They're perpetuating lies. So there are people out there that think that we're just allowing anybody to become a police officer. That's just not accurate. 2 other states already have provided this. We have a U.S. military that has 35,000 immigrants who are not U.S. citizens who are serving in the U.S. military today. 8,000 more sign up every year. We allow that in our U.S. military. We allow it in a couple of other states, and more states are adding on to this list of states that are allowing legal permanent residents. So I'm proud that we are doing this. I think it's the right thing to do. It's also good for our police departments. And, oh, by the way, the Fraternal Order of Police has supported it.
Again, Governor J.B. Pritzker talking about this law. And while, permanent residents here with certain work visas, they've gone through the process and they're allowed to become police officers per this law. But what about the Deferred Action for childhood arrivals, he says, are allowed to be police officers? He says they're legal. Well, a federal judge on Wednesday saying that's not the case, saying that DACA is illegal. And again, around 800,000 individuals believed to be recipients of DACA, with 2/3 of those enrolled in the program thought to be between 21 and 30 years old. So there's a lot of questions still remaining as well as to what kinds of immigration reform there could be. And this was something that was kind of shoehorned into a U.S. Senate committee yesterday, or earlier this week, I should say. It was on Tuesday, when they were trying to do a conversation about book bans. But then Republican U.S. senators like Lindsey Graham and John Cornyn and John Kennedy, they all wanted to inject the issue of immigration and the need for focusing on that in the Judiciary Committee. Here's how that sounded.
183,000 people came over legally in July. We've had 146 people on the terrorist watch list. In FY22, which is about 2.4 million came across. Since President Biden's been president, 5.5 million people have come across illegally. That's bigger than the state of South Carolina. This is a national crisis that begs for a national response since day one. The migrant crisis will destroy New York City. New York City will experience a financial tsunami. The mayor's right. We should be trying to find a way to fix this problem. That, to me, is the biggest priority facing this committee.
Gang of 8, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, wrote a comprehensive immigration reform bill, which I still think in the whole can be used today as a template for where we need to go.
That bill failed to succeed. I know you're proud of it, but that was also at a different time than we're in now. And before the Biden border crisis became so dire. We haven't had a markup of an immigration bill in this committee, which is the committee of jurisdiction, since the current chairman has been chairman. And even when our Democratic colleagues were in charge of both the House, the Senate, and the White House, we haven't considered any immigration bills.
Decision in the bill was that those who are undocumented, currently living in the United States, would report themselves to the government and pay their taxes and their Social Security. They would not qualify for citizenship, at least in the outset. And the idea was to get everybody on the books once and for all. I think that is a positive step forward. It did have favorable sections for dreamers, which you can imagine I had some interest in.
How is that not amnesty?
Well, it isn't as if they're being forgiven for wrongdoing. They were brought to this country as children and infants. I don't think that there was any culpable conduct on the part of these dreamers, if you wish.
You got to secure your border. If you don't, it's a fruitless exercise. You need to increase legal immigration because we don't have enough people to work in our economy, and you need to deal with the people here legally, and I've been very open to doing all those things.
So Lindsey Graham, Senator Durbin, John Cornyn, John Kennedy, all having this conversation during a Senate committee that was supposed to focus on book bans, but they took about 20 minutes at the beginning of the committee to talk about migration and immigration reform. But while we continue that conversation in Washington, D.C., it's still costing taxpayers here in Illinois. How so? From housing to clothing to education to health care. We'll talk about co-pays and how those are suspended in the program for Illinois subsidizing that particular program. So while the federal courts find DACA is unlawful and questions still about how that impacts Illinois' law allowing for non-citizens, including DACA recipients, to be police officers, you've got the headlines stacking up about how many more migrants are coming to Chicago and the tent cities that are expected with military-grade style base camp tents. But also you got the cost that taxpayers are incurring when it comes to migrants' health care subsidies for those over the age of 65. And the governor implemented co-pays, but those co-pays are on hold As an effort to try to shore up those costs on taxpayers, $550 million worth. Here's some of what went down at a Joint Committee on Administrative Rules hearing with the Department of Health Care and Family Services, talking about why they postponed or are suspending a copay that was meant to shore up taxpayer costs.
So I was informed recently that there were some programming issues with regards to that. I believe specifically with regards to the emergency room. Given the fact that there is a program for non-citizens that's federally funded or at least federally matched. And until we had the ability to completely have the system work and function appropriately as it should, and to draw in as much federal matching as possible in these situations, we decided to suspend it and instruct the providers that if there were any copays that were taken, that they needed to repay them because HFS would be paying the full amount.
So again, taxpayers going to be paying the full amount until they reinstitute these copays that are suspended while they try to rework the rules to find how they can get any kind of federal matching dollars for undocumented migrants over the age of 65 going to the hospital or the emergency room. So, again, while you've got the headlines about DACA and, those on the terrorist watch lists coming across the border and more people pouring into Chicago recently with tent cities, the overall cost to taxpayers here in the state of Illinois continues to mount. All right, we got plenty more to get